All right, thank you, Brad. Appreciate that. First of all, quick update. I'm no longer with Google. I left a couple months ago. Just an update. If you want to know more about Google Fiber and my experience there that I had, you can come to lunch and ask questions, and I'll answer them there. How's that sound? Also, it's great to see some members of my regular class. I'm sorry, you're going to have to hear a lot of my same material. Apologize for that, because you're getting the full dose in my regular class. I don't know. Who else is in my class? You are? Who else is in my regular class? Is there only one? Okay, well, sorry. Apologize to you in advance. Okay, I am going to talk about something kind of unique, and it's kind of going to mess with your head a little bit as a student at a university. First, I'll talk about myself, and then some things you might be facing in today's world. So first thing about me, I'm an entrepreneur that came out of school in 1985 from Brigham Young University here in Utah County. I lived in Seattle all my life, came down here to school, went back to Seattle, and I got in the print yellow pages industry, which is a fantastic industry in its day, wildly profitable, competing against the big phone companies. In 1984, right before I graduated, the Bell companies, AT&T, the old AT&T, was split into 8 different companies, and they didn't know what they were doing, so it was easy to compete against them, which is a good opportunity when big companies get split up like that, and so that's what I took advantage of. So in Seattle, and I expanded to Portland. But the real big thing that happened to me is I was the first guy to ever put yellow pages on the internet, and that was in 1994. Real early days of the internet, and so I got real lucky and saw that coming and launched that. I had about 10 major companies want to partner with me. One of them was Microsoft, because that was in my backyard up in Seattle, and there were many companies all across the country. But what was interesting is some folks were leaving. 3 different people were leaving Microsoft and said, hey, come do it with us separately. They had just started a company called InfoSpace. I merged in with them. We used the name InfoSpace, and we went out over the next 2 years and dominated the online directory and search business. And InfoSpace still exists today, a successful company, did very, very well, and a lot of interesting experiences with that. I retired from there in 2001. And then about 6 months later, my alma mater, BYU, called me up, and I started hanging around universities more often. So that's a little bit of that. To tell you how this works for entrepreneurs, this was one of my experiences in life, and I've actually had this experience once as the entrepreneur, and then another time as an investor. And I invested in 2 students at BYU named Josh James and John Pastana back in 1999. And gave them a little bit of money and watched them go through the same experience. And that is starting with a couple people and then going public on the stock market. So that happened with me at InfoSpace. Then I watched students do it from Utah County. So it was kind of interesting. So for me, it's kind of interesting. As an entrepreneur, I obtained my stock in my company for infinitesimally low amounts, like a penny a share or 1/100th of a penny a share. And then you work hard for a number of years and try to create that value. And then on December 15th, 1998, those same shares of stock that I got for less than a penny a share as the founder of a company, the public was buying for $15 a share. Is that a good deal? That's a good deal, right? A good investment. And so then the public at the time was a little nuts. And they really started buying the stock in very high quantities, lots of demand, and we had lots of what we call forward stock splits, which halves the stock price, doubles the number of shares, and then people buy the shares and the price comes back up. And that happened to us, so that basically at the all-time high on March 3rd of 2000, the stock was $138.50. But if you adjust it for the stock splits, that's $1,108. And remember where I started from, right? There's nowhere in the world, no real estate investment, nowhere buying stock on the market of other people's companies, like when you invest right now, that you can increase your personal net worth faster than starting your own company and being an entrepreneur. There's nothing else like it. In a matter of a few weeks, you can 200 times your net worth being an entrepreneur. So it's kind of interesting. It's not for everybody though. It's not for everybody. And being an entrepreneur and being an executive in an entrepreneurial venture is not always for everyone. So with that, this is kind of amazing. You know, seeing increases in the thousands of percentiles is common in the world I run in. I see this all the time. But to other people, they go, this is nuts. Too good to be true. It can't happen. Well, it doesn't happen just fall in your lap. Behind every story is a lot of pain. Last night, I was in Hawaii with 40 couples, married couples, who are past student. You have to suffer for me again. Yeah, you were the semester before. Anyway, we have to suffer entrepreneurs early on. Matter of fact, this one couple, co-founder of Dentrix. Anybody ever heard of Dentrix or Henry Schein? Dentrix was bought for a few $100 million by Henry Schein when Henry Schein was only worth about $400 million. Now they're worth about $13 billion. And I was with the co-founder of Dentrix just last night in the Honolulu airport waiting for a flight to Salt Lake City. And I had a person sitting this side. There were 6 of us. This one couple makes a steady Freddy income working for somebody else. And this person's the co-founder of Dentrix. And I said, hey, you know, you live in a mansion. You're super wealthy now. What happened? Was it always easy? Did you ever have any hard times? And the wife immediately goes, they shut off our electricity twice. And the other wife over here goes, what? Your electricity was shut off? That's unfathomable to some people. But it happens if you don't pay your electric bills. And if you're an entrepreneur not taking any salary, you can't pay your bills sometimes. And I go, what else happened? He goes, well, one time we went 7 straight months without a penny coming into our household. And the other wife over here goes, what? Can't take that. Well, you know, it's just an interesting experience. So that's what happens. A lot of early sacrifice, working hours and hours and hours, thinking you're never going to make it, and then things happen and you do make it. And I went through that experience. Now, when that experience happens in life to people, a lot of times entrepreneurs that are successful, they become angel investors. An angel investor is an individual who's made money being an entrepreneur and says, I want to help other entrepreneurs, but I don't want to work so hard like I did the last 10 years. I'm going to have them work hard, and I'm going to give them money and a little bit of advice and help. And I've done a lot of these investments. I've done 65 direct investments and hundreds of indirect investments, meaning I invested in funds that then invest in the entrepreneur. And so, very active. These are just a handful. I haven't updated this for years. Just in the last couple weeks, I've made 3 or 4 new investments in local companies. So it's an exciting place to play, but it's also a dangerous place to play. The returns here, when it goes well, are staggeringly high. But 7 out of 10 of these investments ends in complete failure and I lose all my money. I'm hoping one of them is a home run to make up for all the other losses. This right here is a movie investment called The Haunting of Marston Manor. The producer, director, screenwriter said it's a sure thing. He's got 2 distributors. It's going to be incredible. The movie comes out, the Salt Lake Tribune and the Deseret News each give it 1 star. Never plays in the theater for more than a couple days, and all the money's lost. Okay, that's how it's interesting. Independent movies, I will never touch again. They're very hard investments. So you can see there's Omniture. That was a really good one. This one, Allegiance, just paid off for me after 8 years of waiting. I gave a young kid in Utah money 3 different times, 8 years ago. And just about 3 months ago, Allegiance was sold. And the founder, Adam Edmonds, is now a wealthy man. And it was sold to, like your last name, Mertz. I think that's Meritz. Oh, Meritz. Meritz. Almost your last name. Just put an I in there. Okay? And now it's called Meritz Allegiance or something like that, the company. And you can see these things happen. You can Google and find all about this. Kind of things happen. So that's how the world kind of works, is entrepreneurs that make it then start helping other entrepreneurs, and that feeds giving them capital so that they can build these companies. And so I've been heavily involved in that. What have I learned through being an executive for my own company and seeing other executives work? Well, let me just share about 5 or 6 things I want to share with you before I get to some other topics. First of all, I got to know myself. those who have taken my class, I tell you the most important thing you can do at a university is learn who you are and what you want out of life and where you're good and where you're not so good. That's really important. If you don't have an idea for that right now and you're just floundering, wondering what the heck are you going to do in the world, you need to figure out who you are, what you want out of life, and how you're going to get there. Now, for me, I found out that 80 to 120 employees is the maximum head count for me of any company I want to be involved with, exception a university, which is a weird animal. But for a corporation, anything over 80 to 120 employees drives me crazy, because they usually have an on-staff attorney, an HR department, and those people drive me crazy. They tell you what not to do more than what you can do and make it very unfun to be in business. So I don't like that. So that's good to know, right? When I first moved to Utah, a really large company recruited me to be CEO, and I stopped the headhunter, said, you got the wrong person, okay? I'm very, very good at under 40 employees. I love when there's only 10, 20 employees and we don't know how we're going to meet payroll next week. That's like a fun challenge. Now some people, that'd make them nervous, right? But you're really not an entrepreneur until it's Thursday night at 9 p.m. and at 8 a.m., 15 people need to be paid and you don't have enough money in the bank. Then you're an entrepreneur. Okay? The team is paramount. What I mean by this is the people that you bring on your bus and getting them in the right seats, there's nothing more important. Nothing more important. They interviewed 65 billionaires and said, if you could change one thing out of your business career and go back and change it, what would it be? And the majority said they would have given a raise or salary increase when asked for by a top employee, instead of saying, no, I'm not going to give you that raise, and they go and leave. It set them back 6 months or 12 months on their personal plans by losing a good person. People working for you and putting the team and getting it together is the most important thing. The climb up the mountain is what builds a person's character, not getting to the summit. It's kind of interesting. So even if you are involved in something that ends in a failure, it really refines you and can build you, depending on how you react to that experience. But it's much more fun to be climbing than it is to be sitting on the summit. It's an interesting thing, and it's hard when you're a student saying, oh yeah, right. But really, it's true. The climb up is the exciting part of life and gives purpose and mission, and you can help and do great things, build great products, build services that change and help people's lives. So that's a lesson for me. Another one is a rising tide lifts all boats. This is, I guess, scarcity versus abundance mentality. We talk a lot about that in the people that write books from Utah County and put principles into book form. And it's really, the bottom line is this, is that it doesn't have to be a win-lose transaction. It can be win-win, and you can make things happen where a rising tide lifts all boats. One thing I like about entrepreneurship and internet and software, where Brad introduced me as somebody likes that, is in the internet, software, and high-tech industry, the entrepreneurs who start the company share the wealth by giving a piece of ownership to their employees through stock options. Those are the kind of companies I like to be involved with, so that if the founder is going to make all this money from the value of the company, why not the employees too that help build the company? And so that's an exciting place to be. And I'm not so excited when somebody says they're just going to pay me a modest salary and not give me any ownership in the company. Then it's just a job, right? It's not building something great. All right, now, with that said, I also want to let you know that wealth has its pitfalls as well as its blessings. So I talked a lot about the creation of wealth and entrepreneurship. The reason why that's so big and important in the entrepreneurial world is because it's kind of the scorecard. It's showing that there's an achievement and reward for the hard labor of building great products and services. But it's really important to understand that wealth in and of itself and just doing something for wealth's sake usually ends in not getting the wealth and actually corrupting you as an individual. I have story after story of people I've known that have handled wealth well and those that have not handled it very well. It's actually the pursuit of money for the wrong purpose that actually can destroy life. And it's really important. I talk more in my full class about these concepts and help teach people to understand. I still haven't taught a class, and I think it's going to be true here at UVU too with the classes I'm teaching, where at least 1 to 3 out of about 50 students 5 years later is a multimillionaire by starting a company. I have countless numbers from BYU. We'll see where we're at with UVU now in a few years from now and what's happened with the people I've taught this year. But you got to be careful what you wish for. The worst thing that I could ever have happen is you get inspired, go start a company, become wealthy, and lose all the purpose and meaning in life, your family, etc. And it happens a lot of times. So if that happens to you, my reason for bringing it up today is someday when we meet, wherever it is, and your life is in ruins because you were successful in entrepreneurship, I'm going to say I told you so and you can't blame me. Okay, there we go. All right, with that said, I want to switch gears. That's about me and who I am. There's 2 things I've really been studying the last few years because I'm interested in university and students and the choices they make for careers. You interested in that topic too, just a little bit? Okay. There's actually a super big crisis in higher education, and so I've shared this in depth in my class, so the 2 that have taken my class before in here, they're going to get a little bit of a dose of this. This is going to be a little shocking to you, and actually there's probably some people at this university that this material will be very controversial, but I've researched it heavily and I cite my sources. So first of all, MIT in their magazine called Technology Review and Time magazine back in 2012 to 2013 did massive studies on the higher education industry. And they concluded, for instance, Time did an over 40-page expose. That's a lot of one magazine to dedicate to this topic. And the higher education industry is broken. That's the conclusion. And there's some reasons why it's broken. Now, universities are very important places for you to be at for a lot of different reasons. But if you don't approach a university properly, you can be wasting a lot of money. So you need to do it smartly. Now, with this said, here's one of the problems. The industry has soaring costs. There's hardly any industry that's increasing like the tuition at universities. The university tuitions, and all the numbers I'm going to show you here are adjusted for inflation from before and since in 2011 dollars. That's the mark of what we're using. So don't worry, it's not because of inflation. These are real increases. And we're seeing 7 to 10% increases in tuition every year in universities. That's a very high level of increase in today's economy for price of a product. So in seeing this, you can see that from 1980, this is 1990, this is 2000, and then 2011, and seeing adjusted for 2011 dollars again, that this is the cost increase to tuition. Not due to inflation, due to price increase. That's astounding. Okay? So now, here is the corollary to that and how it's affecting all of you, is that your debt that you end your education with is going up dramatically. And I just checked and said today for this talk, since I haven't updated for a while, I'm going to look for some more specific information. And lo and behold, people are concerned about this, so they've actually created complete websites and organizations to study this problem. Matter of fact, there's a prediction that the next big economic calamity facing the world is going to be the $1 trillion in student debt that will be unable to be paid back. So it could cause a ripple effect similar to the mortgage crisis. We'll see how that turns out. Now, with this, here's an updated, some data. So 2013, the average student is leaving with $28,400 after their education that they owe somebody that has to be paid back. Okay? Now that's 70% of students. 30% leave without debt. I should clarify that. So 70% of those that owe somebody, that's the average across all institutions of higher learning. Okay? So the good news, of course, is here in Utah County, the universities are some of the most affordable universities anywhere in the world, but it still is a problem if you have debt and you have a hard time paying it back. So I went and looked, and so here's the public four-year institution average. So for Utah, it's $22,418, so slightly less than the average because we're pretty good. Utah is ranked 44th best, or I mean 44th most severe, meaning they're in better shape than 43 other states. And also the student, 52% only have this debt. That's pretty good compared to 70% for national average. Then they even have it down to Utah Valley University specifically. And so the average debt at UVU is $14,600 for the 2013 graduates, but 81% of them had debt. So people are taking on debt to come to UVU. Now, taking a look at all this, what does all this mean? Well, we have to look at what it means. And you have to look at what implications your education has on your lifetime earnings. Now, for instance, if you get less than high school, if you adjust for 2011 dollars, again, this is not inflation, this is saying in 2011 dollars, how much are you going to earn if you did not get a high school degree? You did not graduate high school. You'll earn $1 million by the time you retire at around age 65. All those years. That's what, 47 years, right? If I'm doing my math right. 47 years approximately, you will earn $1 million. If you graduate from high school, you get a 40% increase. So graduate from high school is a good economic investment. All right? Now, if you get some college, you'll go up $200,000. If you get a 2-year associate's degree, $1.8 million. So another $200,000 increase. If you get the bachelor's degree and complete that 4-year degree, you spike up to $2.4 million, which is going to be double the total income of somebody that didn't graduate from high school and nearing double of a high school graduate. Now, if you get your master's degree, $2.8 million, doctoral degree, $3.5 million, professional degree, which are doctors, lawyers, right, $4.2 million. So these are some interesting numbers, and taking a look at this and thinking about this way. When we business people need to think about education as an investment and what it's going to return to you. So the choice of your major and completing a degree ends up being quite important. Now, with that said, there's also a lot of disruption coming to education. Some of the most state-of-the-art, these are called massive open online courses. And for instance, MIT has put all their content for free out on the internet from every course they teach. Lots of universities are starting to do this. They're finding out that what university brings is an instructor who can mentor and guide you through the material is where the value is, not the actual content. Because the content's available almost everywhere. There's Khan Academy, all these places you can go get this content. Now, these are going to have some kind of impact. There's actually a person in here in Utah County who is working on a three-dimensional world for education, where you can go to any university that has a three-dimensional duplicate of it, be in your home den, walk into a Harvard classroom and take the class from a Harvard professor and pay whatever dollars for that lecture. Interesting. So that kind of thing is being looked at. Now, I want to come back to this slide, because this slide is really actually quite important. Now, this is going to be a weird, brash thing to say here, and some of you are going to get kind of actually upset by me saying it. But the reality is this. In the world I run in, and with entrepreneurs like the people I sat with at the table last night in Honolulu, or the people the day before that were sitting around the swimming pool at a resort in Hawaii, there's about 20 couples and we're all talking and having fun. To us, to the average person there, a lot of them didn't graduate college. Because to them, a lot of these numbers are rounding errors to their lifetime earnings. And that's a funny thing. Every day in America, people are at universities learning how to start companies, making smart choices on their degrees, getting that degree, and going out and building companies. Sometimes they're so successful as students, they don't quite finish the degree. I know about 10 people in Utah County worth $100 million plus each, don't have a college degree. They lack 3 credit hours. Someone like Brad needs to go say, we'll give you an honor degree if you make a donation to build a new building here at the university, right? I keep trying to tell all the people in your position to hunt those people out and give them an honorary degree, but I think they sometimes wear it as a badge of honor. I did it without a degree. Maybe that's good or bad. I don't know. I'm not here to make a judgment. I'm here to report on what I'm finding in some of this data. Now, your job career prospects are interesting. There's a lot of problems going on right now. The last 3 springs in America, only 1 out of 2 college graduates got a job in what they graduated in. 50% did not. They got low-paying service jobs. And that's because we have another problem going on in America with the recovery from the Great Recession. Corporations are making massive amounts of profit, but they're not hiring anybody. Now there's pockets going down. Utah is a little insulated. We're the #1 state economy. We have the best job situation of anywhere in the country. That's pretty good to be around. But the rest of the country, in massive metropolitan areas, there's lots of people not getting hired back. And that's because of some other things going on. Now, also, internships have kind of been messed up because lawyers keep suing companies that give good internships to students. I like internships, but unfortunately, free internships, people are suing over that because they're saying this person should be paid a salary. So now all the companies are saying, well, I'm not going to take a student and give them an internship then. If it can't be free, because they don't have the skills, I'm going to teach them a lot of skills. They can be free for 3 months while I give them skills. It's kind of a problem. You can go read about that problem. So here's something that's interesting too. Before I show you this video, I want to show you, is that there's a new phenomenon going on, and that is in vocational training. Do I need a 4-year degree? I've got, what, how much time left? About 11 minutes? 12 minutes. Coding boot camps. Now, these are popping up all over the country. There's hundreds of them. And they're taking a person from scratch and in 12 weeks teaching them how to be a software engineer. It has near 100% placement in 12 weeks. Tuitions ranging anywhere from about $8,000 to $20,000 for the 12-week course. It's intensive, but you get really good placement. And there are 3 or 4 of these at least running around in Utah, all with high placement rates and getting people jobs. And really nice jobs with a skill that for the next 20 years will be highly paid, which is a good thing. So there's these different programs all around, and it's really interesting, and it's a phenomenon going on in adult education that's really fascinating. So you might want to check some of those out to augment your education. Now, let's talk about the future just a little bit. There's another phenomenon going on that is concerning, and that is what's happening with urbanization. Urbanization is leading to a decrease in first world populations at a staggering rate. Almost all of the first world nations are going down in population. And as a country goes from third world to second world to first world and cluster around urban centers, it becomes a big disadvantage to have children. Now, 120 years ago and before, if you had 10 children, you could work your land and you had a lot of food. But now less than 0.1% of the population makes our food because of science and technology. And so we don't need to worry about that in the first and second world nations. And so we cluster around urban centers and find out, having 4 or 6 kids, I'm struggling month to month while my friends over here, double income with no kids, they're having a kind of an easier time in life. And so all of a sudden people start having 3 kids, then 2 kids, then 1 kid. It's a really interesting phenomenon going on. Matter of fact, the prediction is that the world population will peak out by about 2050 at 9 billion and then go back down to 6 billion by about 2080, that fast, because of so few children will be born. So this worry about the world getting 50 billion people and we're walking around like sardines is, they don't think it's going to happen. So with that, I'm going to share something now about what I think is the biggest threat to all of us and humans and what we're going to be doing over the next 20 years. And that is the staggering pace of robotics. And it's not just physical robots. It's software robots. Software robots that write software better than software engineers at fractions of the cost. And so this is a little taste for what's coming. We'll take a look at it.
One of the hallmarks of the 21st century is that we are all having more and more interactions with machines and fewer with human beings. If you lost your white-collar job to downsizing or to a worker in India or China, you're most likely a victim of what economists have called technological unemployment. There's a lot of it going around, with more to come. At the vanguard of this new wave of automation is the field of robotics. Everyone has a different idea of what a robot is and what they look like. But the broad, universal definition is a machine that can perform the job of a human. They can be mobile or stationary, hardware or software, and they are marching out of the realm of science fiction.
1 minute left and I'll pop up if this goes too long. Close it.
The story will continue in a moment.
The age of robots has been anticipated since the beginning of the last century. Fritz Lang fantasized about it in his 1927 film Metropolis. In the 1940s and 50s, robots were often portrayed as household help.
May I take your hat and coat?
And by the time the Star Wars trilogy arrived, robots with their computerized brains and nerve systems had been fully integrated into our imagination. Now they're finally here. But instead of serving us, we find them competing for our jobs. And according to MIT professors Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee, one of the reasons for the jobless recovery.
Our economy is bigger than it was before the start of the Great Recession. Corporate profits are back. Business investment in hardware and software is back higher than it's ever been. What's not back is the jobs.
And you think technology and increased automation is a factor in that?
Absolutely.
The percentage of Americans with jobs is at a 20-year low. Just a few years ago, if you traveled by air, you would have interacted with a human ticket agent. Today, those jobs are being replaced by robotic kiosks. Bank tellers have given way to ATMs. Sales clerks are surrendering to e-commerce.
I'm an automated system that can...
And switchboard operators and secretaries to voice recognition technology.
There are lots of examples of routine, middle-skill jobs that involve relatively structured tasks, and those are the jobs that are being eliminated the fastest. Those kinds of jobs are easier for our friends in the artificial intelligence community to design robots to handle them. They could be software robots, they could be physical robots.
What is there out there that people would be surprised to learn about? In the robotics area, let's say.
There are heavily automated warehouses where there are either very few or no people around. That absolutely took me by surprise.
It's on display at this huge distribution center in Devens, Massachusetts, where roughly 100 employees work alongside 69 robots that do all the heavy lifting and navigate a warehouse maze the size of 2 football fields, moving 10,000 pieces of merchandise a day from storage shelf to shipping point faster and more efficiently than human workers ever could.
We think it's part of the new American economy.
Bruce Welty is CEO of Quiet Logistics, which fills orders and ships merchandise for retailers in the apparel industry. This entire operation was designed around the small orange robots made by a company outside Boston called Kiva, and can now be found in warehouses all over the country.
Now this is the order that she's filling, right, on this screen?
Yes. In a typical warehouse, she'd have to walk from location to location with number totes. And that's the innovation here, is that the product comes to her.
And all of this is pre-programmed? Nobody has to sit there and tell these robots where to go?
No, it's all done with algorithms. A lot of mathematics, a lot of science that went into this.
Customer orders are transmitted from a computer to Wi-Fi antennas that direct the robots to the merchandise, guiding them across an electronic checkerboard with barcodes embedded in the floor panels. Once the robot arrives at its destination, it picks up an entire shelf of merchandise and delivers it to the packing station. It then speeds off to its next assignment.
They know if they need to get from point A to point B and they're not carrying anything, they can go underneath the grid. We call that tunneling. So they're very smart.
You'd think they'd run into each other.
Yeah, you think that, but it never happens.
If you had to replace the robots with people, how many people would you have to hire?
Probably 1.5 people for every robot.
So it saves you a lot of money.
Yes.
And it's not just going on in warehouses. El Camino Hospital in California's Silicon Valley has a fleet of robots called tugs that ferry meals to patients, medicines to doctors and nurses, blood samples to the lab, and dirty linen to the laundry. A hospital spokesman told us the tugs are supposed to supplement nurses and hospital staff, not replace them. But he also believes that robots and humans working together is the beginning of a new era. Robots are now wielding scalpels for surgeons, assisting in the most delicate operations, allowing them to see and snip their way through prostate surgeries with minimal damage. And they've begun filling prescriptions in hospital dispensaries and local pharmacies. Economic evolution has been going on for centuries, and society has always successfully adapted to technological change, creating more jobs in the process. But Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee of MIT think this time may be different.
Technology is always creating jobs, it's always destroying jobs, but right now the pace is accelerating. It's faster, we think, than ever before in history. So as a consequence, we are not creating jobs at the same pace that we need to.
And we ain't seen nothing yet.
The changes are coming so quickly, it's been difficult for workers to retrain themselves and for entrepreneurs to figure out where the next opportunities may be. The catalyst is something called computer learning, or artificial intelligence, the ability to feed massive amounts of data into supercomputers and program them to teach themselves and improve their performance.
What's the weather like today?
It's how Apple was able to create Siri, the iPhone robot.
Here's the weather for today.
And Google, its self-driving car.
We've been amazed at how rapidly this has been happening.
This is Jeopardy!
IBM's deep QA system that plays Jeopardy. We had a contest here that pit against our best MIT students, the best Harvard students we could put it up against, and not surprisingly, Watson won. And it's being used in real practical applications now on Wall Street and in call centers. On Siri, millions of people are using that every day.
The fact that
Okay, we don't have time to finish that. That's a taste. Now, I didn't show you the scariest video because I didn't want to freak anybody out. But homework would be, go to YouTube and watch Humans Need Not Apply. If you think you're a special snowflake, as it will tell you, that won't be affected by this, because you're not. That's what it's going to tell you. Now, it's really important as you get this information, understand the message here is this. The takeaway today that I want to share with you is this. If we take everybody here, the blue-blooded people in society that go to the top schools, come from the best, wealthiest families, they're insulated to some degree. Okay? That might not be all of us in this room. So the rest of us have to say, okay, well, some segment is going to be entrepreneurial. And they're going to come up with new products and services and create wealth. But the big question is, what's going to happen to the vast majority of others? Are they going to go to low-paying service jobs that a robot hasn't replaced yet? These are the questions that these videos, if you go watch them, will raise for you. And I think they're vital for a student at a university to be thinking about. You need to think about who you are, what you want, and where you're going to be in 5 years. And make a plan and work backwards. How are you going to get there? What's your job going to be? What's your income, your net worth, your family size? You've Got to start planning and thinking, because I think the days are gone when it's just all going to fall in your lap and be easy. I grew up in a very 27 straight years of continual economic prosperity. And then 2007 destroyed almost all of it. The Great Recession. And things have changed forever according to economists and futurists. So, one message here is this. Entrepreneurship is one avenue to take a look at. UVU is a very entrepreneurial school. It's something you should explore while you're here at the university. Is it for you? If it's not, you need to plan your march towards having a great management or executive position and plan it out, because you're going to be competing not just with humans but with robots, and you need to excel at what you do. So that's my message, and I hope you found it interesting. Thank you, Brad.